This is the Endless Possibilities Podcast, episode number 21.
Welcome to the Endless Possibilities Podcast, dedicated to entrepreneurship, motivation, and success. And now your host, 13-year business veteran, William Shaker.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another fine episode of Endless Possibilities. Today, I am featuring my friend, Yo Pal Hal. Hal is one of my favorite authors, and he has an amazing story to tell, and today you get to hear it directly from him. Before we get started with all the nitty-gritty details, this podcast is brought to you by my book called Optimized. Optimized is for anyone who wants to take their life to the next level by learning how to set goals and then become a high achiever. Now, if you want this book, head on over to williamshaker.com and download your free copy today. Now, as you know, I love giving shout-outs to people who leave me a review on iTunes, so today is no different. Today's shout-out goes to Andrew Ziga, who says, listening to podcast episode number 2 and 3 are very valuable. The quality of the content is something that would be provided at some fancy speaking engagement or Stanford Business University startup. Great job, William. Wow. For someone who hasn't been to college and gets referred to someone who sounds as good as Stanford really means a lot to me. Now, if you feel the same as Andrew, I hope you do, then please head on over to williamshaker.com/iTunes and leave me a review. Now, reviews not only help determine how I do on my podcast, but also tell iTunes that I'm being listened to by my subscribers on a regular basis. So thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. All right, now let's get into today's podcast. So I originally read the book, The Miracle Morning, a few months ago and absolutely loved Hal's story and got so much value out of it. Then I thought that you would get a lot of value and you would love listening to him as well. So after contacting Hal, he was more than thrilled to be on the show, and there is just so much to learn from Hal, so I'll just let him take it over from here, and I really hope you enjoy this interview. So stick around towards the end of the podcast, and I have a few quick announcements to make for you, which you're going to love. Hal Elrod is the #1 best-selling author of the book Taking Life Head On, and once again with his new book, The Miracle Morning, which I really loved reading, Hal. Despite being clinically dead for 6 minutes in a coma and breaking 11 bones and being told to never walk again, he defied the laws of logic, of doctors, and the temptation of to be a victim. And now, for over a decade, Hal has been bringing inspiration and motivation to millions. He is a fantastic, sought-after keynote speaker and now has his own VIP online coaching membership site where he teaches others on have an extraordinary life. Now, Hal, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here. You're an absolute rock star, and everybody listening, including myself, I'm very excited to meet you.
Thanks, Will. It's an honor, and as I mentioned, the more I can reach and meet and impact new people, that's what my mission is. So I'm excited to now be introduced to your listeners and vice versa. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Anytime. You're always welcome to be back here. Now, Hal, because there's a lot to cover, I want to start from the ground level going up. Why don't you take us back to the day when you bought your Mustang and how excited you were, then driving along and then getting into that horrible accident?
Yeah, I've never had it set up that way to tell the story. I like that a lot. I bought a brand new Ford Mustang, which I was 20 years old. And that time in my life was a little fuzzy with my brain damage. But I was 20 years old, bought a brand new Ford Mustang, and really was kind of on top of the world. I mean, I was one of the top sales reps for the company that I worked for at the time, and was living on my own. I mean, finished my first year of college and had a career going. And I bought this brand new car. 3 weeks later, I was driving home after I had given a motivational speech to a bunch of fellow sales reps at my company. And I got my first standing ovation, so kind of on a high, an emotional high. And about 11:30 p.m., a man I had never met before got on the freeway as well, but he got on the freeway going the wrong direction, the opposite of the flow of traffic. And he was in a large Chevy full-size truck, much bigger than my little Mustang. And I don't remember the collision, but around 11:35 p.m., his car hit my car at 70 miles an hour, sent me into oncoming traffic. Another car, an innocent family that didn't have time to even swerve out of the way, they hit my door at 70 miles an hour. And the entire left side of my body was devastated. I broke 11 bones from head to toe. I was clinically dead on the side of the freeway for almost 6 minutes without a heartbeat, and spent 6 days in a coma, and came out of the coma to really face what could have been a devastating reality. I had permanent brain damage, all those broken bones, punctured lung, ruptured spleen, and the doctors thought I would never walk again. And so that's that was the reality that I had to face and had to work with.
Wow, that is quite a story, Hal. Now, I remember reading this on your book, and I'm just thinking to myself, how does somebody survive after something like this? So this must have been a really traumatic incident well into your life, maybe 5 or 6 years after that, or did you quickly get over it?
I very quickly got over it, and to the point where the doctors thought there was no way it could have been real. They called my parents in a few weeks after the accident when I was still bedridden, didn't know if I'd ever walk again. And they said to my parents, we're really concerned with Hal. We believe that he's in denial, because every time we see Hal, he's always smiling and laughing and joking around and making us laugh. And they said that is not normal for someone that's been through what he's been through. And we think, we've seen this before with accident victims where it's so difficult for him to accept what happened that he's just living in this fantasy land where he's pretending everything's okay and, et cetera. And so we need you to talk to him and find out how he's really feeling. And, I didn't know this conversation had taken place. So my dad came in and he sat down and he got real serious and he said, Hal, hey, how are you doing? I said, fine, Dad. What's going on? You seem like something, you have something to tell me. He said, no. How are you feeling? I know when, your friends are visiting and you guys are laughing and reminiscing and telling stories, but he said, how are you really feeling about this accident? When it's like late at night and light turns off and you're just by yourself with nothing to distract you. He said, are you feeling sad? Are you feeling depressed? Are you angry with the drunk driver for doing this to you? He said, God knows your mom and I want to kill him. And he said, so how are you feeling? It's important to talk about those things. And I could tell my dad was really concerned. So I thought about it, and I thought, am I sad? No. Am I angry? No. Am I depressed? And I looked at my dad and I said, Dad, I thought you knew me better than that. I said, I live by the 5-minute rule. I live my life by the 5-minute rule, which says it's okay to be negative sometimes, but not for more than 5 minutes. Bitch, moan, curse, whatever you complain, whatever you got to do to get it out of your system and vent your frustration or your feelings. I said, but it's something I learned in my sales training that after 5 minutes, you stop dwelling on something that's out of your control and you focus 100% of your energy on what you want, where you want to go and what's in your control to move in that direction. And I said, Dad, I can't change that the accident happened to me. And, if I can't walk again, I can't walk again. I said, I believe that I can, and I'm going to find a way. I said, but if not, don't worry about me. I'll be the happiest person you've ever seen in a wheelchair, because if I can't change it, then I'm not going to feel bad about it or feel sorry for myself. And so that was really kind of the I don't know, that was when it was made public, kind of how I was feeling. And he took it to the doctors, and they that was the first time someone said, your son should write a book about how to overcome adversity or tragedy or whatever.
Right.
And so that's kind of where it started. That's where the attitude and the decision that I had made, that if you can't change something in your life, you accept it and focus on what you can change.
Wow, that is powerful. That is really, really powerful. I love that you mentioned something about the 5-minute rule. So you can't be pissed off or bitch or moan about anything for more than 5 minutes. Where did you learn that from? Or is that something that you came up with on your own?
No, I learned that in my sales training. He taught us, he goes, look, you're going to have, you're going to go into an appointment and you're going to have somebody, you're going to be all excited and then they're not going to buy anything. Or even worse, maybe they're going to kick you out of their house because they don't like you, or, who knows. He said, it's okay to be negative sometimes, but not for more than 5 minutes. So I learned it in my sales training and just started applying it to everything in my life. I'd be in traffic and I'd be like, oh, why are these cars going so slow? And then I'd go, wait a minute, I can't change it. right? No reason in dwelling on it. And that actually, what I created from that, I call it the can't change it philosophy. And if your listeners want to go more in depth on that, if you feel like that's a big area of improvement for you, I do have a free resource. If you go to can'tchangeit.com, there's no apostrophe in the word can't, just C-A-N-T, can'tchangeit.com. I've got a 10-minute video. It's actually just an excerpt, a clip of me giving a keynote message where I go in depth on that philosophy. It's a 10-minute clip. You can watch that clip there. And then there's also, I wrote an article. I wrote it out, kind of articulated my thoughts on that topic. But for me, those are the three words that give us freedom from emotional pain, no matter what happens in our life. I've had people that I've spoken to, I've given a speech, and afterwards they said, Hal, my dad died 10 years ago, and I've spent every day suffering, and I thought I was suffering because he died, but now you've made me realize that I don't have to suffer anymore. It's because I've been wishing I could change that he was dead when I can't change it. And so now I've chosen to do what you said and accept it fully, and I feel like I can be at peace with it. So it's really profound. Everything from, a breakup to losing your job to being in traffic to breaking a bone, no matter what, it's a universal principle to allow us to overcome all of our negative emotions.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Now, Hal, I have one more question for you because this is really bugging me and I need to find out, and I'm sure a lot of other people listening, they're kind of interested to find out as well. Now, you always hear it in the news, you hear it on TV, you read about it, and, some say that you see this mysterious light the moment you're about to die. What was your experience like? Because for 6 minutes you said you were dead, right?
Yeah, I was dead for 5 to 6 minutes. So my answer to that, I do get asked that a lot, as you can imagine, and unfortunately, I don't have a mystical, magical, visual experience to share with you. And the reason is my brain, traveling at 70 miles an hour on the freeway. This is very common in head-on collisions. My brain smashed into the front of my skull going 70 miles an hour.
Ouch.
And so I had significant frontal lobe damage, which controls your short-term memory and your judgment. And so I literally have no memory of anything from a few minutes before the accident to about 2 weeks after the accident. So if I did have any experience like that, I didn't see it. However, reflecting back on it, I feel like I gained a much more powerful lesson that everyone listening can apply to their lives. If I told you, hey, I saw a light and it was really cool, you'd be like, wow, that's cool, but I don't know how you'd put that into practice. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I wanted to hear, and you gave it to us, but I wanted to hear your authentic answer for that. So if you didn't see any lights, cool. If you did, that's cool too.
Let me share. I'll share with you again. What I took away from it, and what I took away from it is that everything happens for a reason. As we've heard, we've heard that old adage for many times for years. But here's the difference. What I realized is that the reason is not written in stone somewhere. It's not predetermined. It's not for us to spend our life searching for the reason that the challenges of our lives have occurred. It's not the why did this happen to me. For me, I definitely had those thoughts. Why did this happen to me? Why did I get hit by a drunk driver? Like I'm a good person. I don't deserve this. Those victim thoughts. I had them for a moment, but then I realized, what? It's my responsibility to choose the reasons that this potential tragedy happened to me. And I realized I'm in control of the reasons, and the reasons that I choose determine the direction and the quality of my life. And I decided that, what, I'm destined to, this happened to me so that I can overcome this in the most positive, proactive way possible, so that I can set the example for other people of how they can overcome their challenges and deal with their adversity. And whether it's my family or, my children that I now have, or the people that read my book, I just took that responsibility on, and I think we can all take that on when you're going through challenges. Is, what? This is happening for the reason that I choose, and I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to become stronger, and I'm going to use it to positively impact other people.
Right. Gotcha. Now, as I'm listening to all this stuff, I'm thinking to myself, first of all, I hear every word that comes out of your mouth, and everything resonates with me, and I love it, just so you know. But as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking to myself, this guy has a lot of energy. I love it, and I'm sure the listeners are loving it as well.
Or they're intense. They're like, oh my gosh, just relax. I get that a lot too.
No, I love it. Keep going, man. If it's authentic to you, and this is how you are, and this is how revved up you get, by all means, get revved up, man.
That definitely is all of those things for sure.
Good. Now, I want to move into your book. I want to get into, a few other things such as mindsets. If we haven't covered it already, we're going to get into it a little bit more in depth now. Now, can you tell me, what made you decide to create the Miracle Morning routine and book? Because I know that you mentioned that your father or someone close to you had told you to write this book, but give us a little bit detail and the reason and the history behind it, and as little time as you can, because we have a lot to cover.
Yeah, no, you're right. The Miracle Morning. So it was not a book idea. It was something that when I was at my lowest point in my life. And it was about 8 years after the accident when the economy had crashed in 2008, 2009. My business failed. I lost my house. I was living off credit cards, over $50,000 in credit card debt. And for the first time in my life, I felt really hopeless. And I got very, very depressed, and to the point where thoughts of suicide were going through my head. And I don't think I would ever have done it, but I feel like I kind of understand where when people get to that dark place and they feel like there's no hope, I felt like I was nearing that. And a friend, as you mentioned, he didn't tell me to write the book. He just said, "Hey, Hal, you need to exercise." I finally confessed. I wasn't telling you when I was depressed, and I finally confessed to him that I was depressed. He said, "Are you exercising every day?" And I said, "No, I could barely get out of bed in the morning. I just want to hide from the world." He said, "You've got to exercise, get oxygen to your brain so you can think clearer and feel better." And I thought it was really lazy advice. I'm like, "Really? That's the best that you got for me? Like, go exercise? Come on." And I didn't think it was going to do anything to solve my problems, but I thought, I'm desperate. I'll take his advice. I'll go for a run. And 2 minutes into my first run, I had an epiphany that I was listening to a Jim Rohn audio, and he said, your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development, because success is something you attract by the person you become. And I stopped running, and I realized I'm not dedicating time to my personal development every day so that I can become the person that I need to be to turn my life around, solve my problems and create the extraordinary life that I really want. And I ran home, I pulled out a piece of paper, I pulled out my planner, and I started brainstorming, when am I going to wake up, or when can I do this personal development? And the only time I really found is I thought, well, I got to wake up earlier because I don't have any other time available to me. But I wasn't a morning person. So I decided, what, if I want my life to change, I got to do something, to change myself first. The next morning, I woke up an hour earlier. I went through these 6 personal development practices that I'd kind of, brainstormed the day before. And by 6 a.m. that day, I had more motivation, more energy. My depression had all but vanished. And I felt empowered to turn my life around. And within 2 months of doing that routine every morning, I had more than doubled my income. I had started training for an ultra marathon when I had never run in my life before. And my life had turned around so fast that I started calling my morning routine the Miracle Morning and teaching it to my coaching clients. And, that was 3 or 4 or 5 years before it ever even, got started to become a book.
Wow, that's a great story, Hal. Just like you, I haven't been doing it for that long. But by the way, you wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, right?
I wake up at 3:30.
3:30. Wait a second. Your book says 5. What's going on, man?
No, it says the first day was 5.
Oh.
But and actually maybe I don't know if I go into detail on that because I didn't want to scare people. But so I honestly don't remember it in the book if I go into that. But no, I do actually, because I talk about it was 5 o'clock at first, and then after just a week of getting up at 5, I wanted more of the Miracle Morning because it was the best part of my day, and so I decided to start getting up at 4. And basically a week or 2 into it, it was 4 a.m. and it's been that ever since.
Okay,
and
so
now it's 3:30.
So you wake up at 3:30 every morning, but what time do you go to sleep?
Usually 9:30.
9:30.
So I go 6 hours of sleep, and as you know from the book, I'm a big believer in kind of the mind-body connection and programming your subconscious to to adapt to how many hours of sleep that you're getting any given night. Right.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is that, like you, I wake up very, very early in the morning, but I don't wake up at 3:30. I think that's ridiculous. I don't know if I could do that. I mean, programming in my mind, I can do that, but I guess I don't want to do that. It's a choice. Instead, I wake up at 5. it's a bit more reasonable to me and you, but to a normal individual who gets up and works at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, they're going to wake up at their regular time. So I prefer to wake up at 5, and I've been doing that for a long time. I've developed my own personal formula, and after reading your book, I learned a little bit more from that, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. So on podcast number 15, I got into it a little bit, and as you already know, because I've shared this with you, I took a few of your tips and your examples and shared them to my podcast listeners as well. So thank you so much for that, man. That was really, really awesome, and I got some great tips out of it.
No, my pleasure. I appreciate you paying it forward, William. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in terms of your miracle morning, can you give our listeners maybe 1 or 2 tips they can take right away and start using?
Yeah. First and foremost, I always say that a great morning starts the night before. So, in the book, I teach the 5-step snooze-proof wake-up strategy for those of us that are not. Well, I wasn't a morning person. I definitely would say that I am now, but I had the limiting belief that I'm not a morning person. I thought it was either you are or you aren't. I didn't realize that it was something you could condition yourself to be. But so a couple things before bed. You want to, number one, make sure you move your alarm clock across the room, and don't have it, even if it's on your phone, set the phone across the room, not on your nightstand. Because if it goes off and it's on your nightstand, then when you reach over to turn off the alarm or hit the snooze button, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being fully awake, you're at like a 1 or a 2 when you make that choice. Versus getting out of bed, walking across the room immediately shoots you to, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you're starting to feel at least half awake. Probably about a 5 is average. And it's a lot easier to make that decision to stay awake. And the other tip is keep that phone on the way to the bathroom and make the decision before you go to bed that when the alarm goes off, I'm going to go straight from the phone to the bathroom to brush my teeth, wash my face, so that I'll be at a 7 or 8 on a scale of 1 to 10 of being awake. And then the other tip I'll give you as far as waking up is make sure you have a full glass of water first thing in the morning, because this is one thing that through my research of learning about being more effective at early rising, we are dehydrated when we wake up in the morning. And, no one ever taught me this. It's not something that they teach in school. I think they should, because it's true for, no matter what age you are, but you go all night without any water. And then, often people wake up and they start with coffee, which is a diuretic, which even dehydrates you more. It's even worse. So first thing I do in the morning is I take a full glass of water. I down it. I mean, like I was a high schooler at or a college kid at a keg party. I just down a full glass of water, and then I pour my second one and start sipping on that. And then I pour a cup of coffee.
Wow, interesting stuff. Yeah, I read all that stuff in your book. I wake up every morning and I am so dehydrated. And the night before that, I usually drink like at least 2 tall glasses of water. And when I wake up in the morning time, I'm so dehydrated, I have to drink at least 2 or 3 tall cups once again. I completely resonate with you. If you guys out there, if you're listening and you're not drinking water and the first thing you're drinking is coffee, I don't know how you operate throughout the whole day. It's almost impossible for me to do that.
Yeah, you've got to and that's what I always tell people is it doesn't mean I do a lot of TV and radio interviews, and one of my segments is the 5 things not to do in the morning, and I say number 1, do not hit the snooze button. Number 2, do not drink coffee, and I say do not start with coffee, and people of course go what they all freak out because they go I need my cup of coffee, and I say no, you can have it, just make sure that it follows a full glass of water. And that's what I do. Gotcha.
Well, Hal, congratulations on becoming a #1 bestseller for both of your books. I've only read one of your book, but I do plan on picking up your other one. I think it's Take Life Head On, correct?
Taking Life Head On. And William, if you will email me your mailing address, I will send you a personally autographed copy of that. Happy to.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be awesome. Cool. Now, Hal, like you, I find it very difficult to write. Now, what made you write your first book? How did you like get the energy to write this thing? Like, I know you were talking about getting in front of your computer and going completely blank. How did you overcome that?
Well, it was really the same with both of the books. And what it was, writing it's challenging. I'm not a natural writer at all. It's something that, in high school, getting an essay done, it was challenging, let alone a 200-page book. And so my first book, I tried writing it for 6 years. Meaning, after the accident, I opened up a Word document, I got started, I would occasionally revisit it, then I would get writer's block and get discouraged and stop. And a couple things that finally helped. Number one is a friend gave me advice. He had written a book, and I said, "How do you write a book?" And he said, "Don't try to write a book." He said, "Can you write one page?" I said, "Yeah, I could write one page. In fact, I've written 6 of them in the last 6 years. But at this rate, I'll be like 150 when my book's done." He said, No. Can you write one page in one day?" I said, "Of course, yeah." He goes, "Okay, just do that every day for the next 6 months, and you'll have a 180-page book." And that simple philosophy and strategy, and it's true for all of our goals. When I was in sales, I broke it down to my daily number of calls, and I just focused on making those calls every day, and then I was able to achieve, my sales goals. But focusing on one page per day. But then the difference maker was getting accountability. I hired a coach to hold me accountable to hit my milestones and write every week, every day and every week. And it was that accountability of checking in with someone that really was the difference maker. And the same thing with Miracle Morning. I've been a coach for 7 years. I'm pretty good at I'm really good at holding myself accountable, but there's always that next level that no matter how much of an achiever you are, there is always a next level for us that we're not holding ourselves accountable to achieving. And for me, it was the Miracle Morning book for a long time. And I finally reached out to a writing coach. I said, "Hey, how much, I'm going to hire you to hold me accountable to get this book done." And 4 years of working on the Miracle Morning, I got more done. I finished the book in 4 months. And in 4 years, I had not even finished, a fourth of it.
Wow, that's powerful, man. That's really awesome. Now, I guess this has a lot to do with habits, right? Now, what is the best way to create new habits, and what has worked for you?
Sure. Well, and as you know, in the Miracle Morning book, I do dive into that in one of the later chapters. For me, I believe that habits, it's one of the most important. It's really a skill, and it's one of the most important skills for us to master. When I say a skill, I mean the ability to identify which habits are holding you back from achieving your success, either because you're not doing them or because they're bad and you are doing them. So to identify the habits and then to strategically and consistently implement and sustain the right habits into your life. It's one of the most important skills that we can learn how to do, but there's nowhere, you don't learn it anywhere. They don't teach it in high school. They don't teach it in college, yet it's arguably more important than anything else. There could have been a class on that. It'd be the most important class we ever had in either school setting. So what I've found is that there's really 3 10-day phases to implement and sustain habits. And most people, because they're not aware of these, they are they're not good at it. They suck at new habits. You look at anybody that sets a New Year's resolution, and the majority of our society, they don't stick with their resolutions past a week or two. So the first 10 days is what I call unbearable. That's the unbearable phase where you hate it. If it's waking up early, you're like, "Oh my gosh, it's already morning. I'm so tired," or whatever. Or if it's running, "Oh, I don't want to run. I'm so tired," right? So whatever it is for you, the first 10 days feels unbearable. But let me ask you a question, Will. If something is going to impact your life in a significantly positive way, can you get yourself to do anything for 10 days?
Oh, absolutely.
But most people don't realize that it's a 10-day finite difficult phase. They think, "Oh my gosh, it's day 5 and this still sucks. Is this how it's going to feel forever? Forget it. I'm throwing in the towel." But when you're aware that, wow, the first 10 days feel this way, but that's okay because it's only 10 days. Days 11 through 20, the next 10 days are uncomfortable, where it's not a picnic yet. It's not a blast, but it's not that difficult. It's just kind of, you're right in the middle. You're like, "I don't really enjoy this yet." But finally, the final 10-day phase is what I call the unstoppable phase. And that's where you start to identify the new habit as part of who you are. That's where I went from hating running to disliking running to about the 24th day. I went, "You know what? I am a runner. Look at what I've done the last 24 days. I am becoming a runner. This is amazing." You start to associate pride and positive feelings, and then the habit can become permanent.
Right. Awesome, man. Now, Hal, this question is probably something that everybody's thinking right now. Now, Hal, you're an extremely motivated, high energy individual. Everybody can sense that. I can sense that. But do you have those days where you just feel like crap? And yeah, you have these habits, and yeah, you have this mindset. But do you have those days where you just feel paralyzed? You just don't want to get up from bed. You just want to kind of not do anything.
Absolutely. And I don't know that I don't want to get out of bed anymore. I think I've conditioned myself so much to where even if I'm having a bad day, that's the beauty of every day, is that I get to start it on my terms. Follow?
Right.
And I think that's what the Miracle Morning kind of gave me. Because I definitely have bad days, and I deal with this stuff. I'm human. I have fears and insecurities, and you know what I mean. Like I've got all of it, and some days I feel in a funk, and I don't know why. And I end up finding that in the past, when I would have a bad day, it would usually, and in most people, this is how their life kind of goes. That if they're going through challenges, the day ends, they're feeling depressed, and they're going, oh God, I got to wake up tomorrow, and I got to do it all over again. And I think that's how the Miracle Morning changed my life, literally, in less than 24 hours, is because my bank account balance didn't change in 24 hours. My physical health, things didn't change like that in 24 hours. Not my outer world, but my inner world did. Because immediately I went from being pessimistic and depressed to optimistic and encouraged. And that was the immediate change. And it was like every day, even if I had a horrible day, it wasn't having to go to bed going, oh man, I got to wake up tomorrow and do it all over again. It was, oh, thank God I get to go to bed and wake up tomorrow to my Miracle Morning, where I get time to just focus on me, where I get to reflect in my journal, and I get to meditate or pray. I get to learn something new. I get to exercise. I get to give myself the gifts of feeling energized and motivated and excited, and then every day I got that reset button. So yes, the answer is I have bad days, but every day I get to hit the reset button because my day starts where I'm excited. So I don't ever want to sleep in anymore.
Awesome. Thank you for that, man. I think it's going to be really, really valuable for everyone to hear that, because everybody has a bad day, but not everybody has the skill or the habit or the mindset to kind of shake themselves out of it. So I think that's very, very valuable. Thank you for that. Now, Hal, I want to get into a little bit about the Hal Elrod brand. I want to get into the brand because you've built quite a brand out of yourself, and I love it. You're also a keynote speaker. Now, just being on your website, which is halelrod.com, I can see and I can read about your accident and the transformation that you've had over the years. Now, how did you become so popular as a result of this? And I'm sure I also read that you've been publicized on Chicken Soup for the Soul and a few other books that are very, very well known these days. Now, did they contact you? Did you contact them, or they heard your story? I don't know. How did this happen? And then how did it become into a snowball?
So, I think building my personal brand, it's putting yourself out there, and then slowly but surely if you put out value, you attract people. So whether it's starting a blog and going with your blog and putting out good posts, then, people are attracted to your blog. The same way you've done with this podcast. You have people in 109 countries, thousands of people, and it's growing all the time. So, I think you could speak on that as well as I could. And then as far as these books I've been featured in, Chicken Soup for the Soul, I reached out to, they had an opportunity on their website to be in one of their books, and I reached out, and they liked my story and they wanted to feature me. Another book called The Education of Millionaires, Tim Ferriss put out a blog about author Michael Ellsberg looking for people to feature in his book, and I responded, and he put me in the book. And then some of the books I've been in, they've reached out to me just because they've followed my work or seen me online or something like that. So I think the big picture or small focused answer to how to do that and build your personal brand is, pick up a website with your name or your nickname. I've got yopalhal.com too. And then start putting out content, start sharing what you're learning and putting out value, whether it's in the form of encouraging other people or putting out things that you're learning and sharing those with others.
Right. Awesome. Now, you're also a keynote speaker. Now, how did you become a speaker? And take us through your career as a speaker and how it all started and where you are today.
It was kind of gradual. I did my speaking started with my previous company. I was as one of the top sales reps. I think a week into the job, there was a sales conference coming up, and I was on track to break this record. The sales record as a new person, and they said, "Hey, you're kicking butt. You want to speak at this event next weekend?" And I said, yeah, sure. I was 19 years old, never spoken in my life. And, I got up on stage, I spoke and made some jokes and people liked it. And, I thought, wow, that's a blast. And And then that was it. As a top sales rep, I kept speaking at almost every event, every weekly meetings, national conferences, etc. I just kept speaking and developing that skill and really enjoying it, and then getting feedback from people, emailing saying, "Wow, your speech changed the way that I look at my life," or "You really helped me increase my sales," or whatever. It just became kind of a dream. Like, I want to be a speaker. And then I always thought, I don't know what I would speak about though. What have I done? Who am I? And then the accident happened, and I thought, wow. I actually told my dad, my dream was always to be a motivational speaker, but I didn't have anything to talk about. Maybe that's part of the bigger picture of why this happened. And then from there, I just, it was just kind of a gradual thing. It was never my main focus. But I started, I spoke at my local high school, for free, I think, the first time, and then got references to other schools, and I ended up focusing on kind of, I did corporate stuff, I did colleges, and I did high schools, and I've done all kind of evenly divided between all three of those. And I have a real passion for speaking at high schools and colleges for obvious reasons of impacting young people. But I enjoy speaking at corporations too. There's nothing like, I remember I had a 58-year-old top realtor come up after I spoke, and I was 25 at the time, and he said, "Hal, I got to be honest with you. When you took the stage, I thought, what in the hell is this kid going to teach me about anything, right?" And he said, "Well, I gotta tell you, 45 minutes later, you just changed the way that I've thought about my life for over 50 years. Thank you for that." And I was like, that's powerful. So, I don't have a bias of one age group over the other, but I'm really passionate about speaking at every opportunity that I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you were referring to, Hal, before was you wanted to become a motivational speaker. So you found your story and you found something to talk about with people. Now, I did a podcast, and it was a podcast number 18, How to Make Millions and Market Yourself as an Expert. In the podcast, I mentioned that if you want to become an expert, now, Hal, you're an expert. You're an expert at motivational speaking and bringing inspiration and everything like that to everybody. So I mentioned that you need to bleed, number one, you need to entertain, and number three, you need to educate. Now, I got that reference from James Altucher, and the bleeding part is something that you and I do in the beginning, which is to tell our story, and then it's a woe, and then we create it and make it into a win story. So that's what you've done for yourself, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that part of it was, I do a lot of sales coaching and sales training and coaching entrepreneurs, business owners, anyone in the business or sales field. And because of my expertise in that area as well. And so that was a big challenge for me, is like, where do I focus my energy? Because I'm more passionate about, helping people overcome their limiting beliefs and develop the self-discipline and those things that they need than I am teaching somebody how to sell. I don't know. That's just my thing, but I know there's so much value in teaching somebody how to achieve success financially, in business, and in sales. So that was kind of, for me, it was finding my, it was a challenge between those two, and I've tried to find a way to blend both. So I think it's still kind of a challenge, though, where I focus my energy.
Gotcha. Now, if somebody's starting out from scratch, Hal, if somebody's starting out from scratch and they're not a speaker right now, but they have a lot of expertise, they may have a podcast out there, they're very well known, but they want to become a speaker, what advice would you give them?
I would say go do speaker training. I personally, I went through, that's one thing, I didn't really go into detail on as much my journey on how I got to be paid. But, I went through multiple speaker training. So I went to James Malinchek's college speaking boot camp. I think it's collegespeakingbootcamp.com or collegespeakerbootcamp.com. But I went through that, and the tips that he gave me at that conference, have netted me, I don't know, probably over $100,000 in college speaking. I went through, and I did his 12-month coaching program as well after I was, got so much value at the conference. And then another one of my mentors in the youth speaking was Josh Shipp. And you can go to his website is youthspeakeru, as in university, youthspeakeru.com. And you can go there and get free training videos from Josh. But I invested money and I went to his seminar and then I did his annual coaching program, etc. So I would say, if you're serious about making money as a speaker, you go out there and you find the people that have done it and that are now training on it. And if you want to start, if your budget doesn't allow for you to get that level, go get a book like Money Talks. I can't think of the author, but go to Amazon.com and search Money Talks. That's a great book on how to get paid to speak. One that's maybe a little bit outdated, but that's another one I've read, is called Speak and Grow Rich by Dottie Walters. So that's another good one. So, go out there and just Google how to get paid to speak. And you'll probably have, thousands of articles in 0.032 seconds on Google that'll answer that question more in depth.
Yes, Google is your friend, everybody. Go to Google, it'll solve your problems.
True, that's true.
Awesome, dude. The last thing I want to cover in this podcast, which, by the way, just so you know, is fantastic. There's so much value that you've brought into this podcast, so much to learn, not only for me, but to also my listeners. Thank you so much, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for the sincere appreciation.
What is your primary source of traffic?
A primary source of traffic is my email list. That's where my community, which is growing, it grows every day. I've got quite a few pages up, opt-in pages where I give away, free training and content and 2 free chapters of the Miracle Morning. In fact, if anybody wants to go to miraclemorning.com, you can get the free chapters. And then I've got bonuses in the book where people go, and if they've read the book and they want to get bonuses, they can opt in there. And every day, or I should say every month, probably 300 to 500 new opt-ins come in at those various pages.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, Hal, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. You've inspired my listeners and myself, and you're an absolute hero for coming out of all this alive and 100 times better than you were before. I know we've already talked about all your products and services, but why don't you give our listeners one last time to find out where they can find you?
Yeah, I would start out with the Miracle Morning book. I really believe that is my greatest gift to the world. Just based on, the emails that I get and the reviews of people saying it's changed their life more than anything else. And if you want to go to Amazon, of course, I'd love for you to buy the book. You can get it on Amazon. And on the Kindle, by the way, I think they've got it marked down to like $4 or $4.97 or something. So if you have a Kindle, that's probably the best way to go. But if you're not ready to buy the book, I encourage you to go get the 2 free chapters. Dip your toe in the water, check it out, see if you like it. And that's at miraclemorning.com. And you get the Miracle Morning Crash Course, which is 3 chapters. It is a motivational video training on the Miracle Morning and a 60-minute audio training.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Hal, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. Thank you so much. You're welcome here. Anytime you have anything new to promote, or if you have anything else to talk about, let us know.
Well, that means a lot, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Hal. Thank you so much for listening. I really, really, really hope that you guys got a lot out of this interview as much as I did. Hal is an absolute rock star, and I'm really glad I had him on the show to motivate and inspire you, just like he has inspired and motivated me. Now, before I close off, here are a few reminders for you. Number one, please don't forget that my ebook is out there, and you can download it directly from my website, which is williamshaker.com. The ebook is completely free for you. I made this for you, and you're going to absolutely love it. So make sure to go to williamshaker.com and download your copy today. Now, the second thing is I would love for you to connect with me on my Facebook and on my Twitter account, and you can do that very, very easily with these quick redirect links. To reach me on Facebook, it is williamshaker.com/Facebook. To reach me on Twitter, it is williamshaker.com/Twitter. And I would love for you to subscribe and rate and review this podcast, and you can do that at williamshaker.com/iTunes. So it's very simple, williamshaker/Facebook/Twitter/iTunes. Boom. Very simple. And lastly, I'm working on a brand new program, and it's called How to Become Successful at Anything You Attempt. Now, I know you've listened to this podcast already. I believe it's podcast number 2, but since this podcast has been like the most popular podcast that I've had, and tons of people are referring to it, are tweeting it, are writing articles about it, and I just thought that it would be brilliant for me to expand this entire model of how to be successful at anything and create workbooks from it and create a complete audio CD set out of it. And that's what I'm working on right now. That's what I'm putting all of my attention and energy towards. So I want to give you a little bit more information next week, so stick around and I'll let you know where you can find out more about this product that I'm really, really putting a lot of attention towards and developing for you. And until then, I will see you on the flip side.